Hey, Mike Redeemer here. Be a warrior, not a warrior. This one's not bad. I'm starting to break out all these shirts that I never wear so I can tell the videos apart. Shout out to Michelle from the old Zoom meetings I used to do with some people that were great people. She said something during the last one that I was part of that I can't remember what it was, but it set off a chain reaction of memories of testimonies that I had forgotten, things that I was worried I wouldn't be able to remember for these videos. I can't remember. I can't remember what she said, but Michelle, if you're watching this, thank you. God used you on that Sunday night video chat. I really appreciate it. It really just started the memories flooding in, and God told me the next day He wanted me to share all this stuff as soon as possible. Excuse me. So this video is going to be about a trip in 2001 that I took. And yes, God did show me something about 9/11, but I didn't know what the heck He was talking about at the time. So until after it happened. So it was September 8th of 2001. So I got saved on August 20th of 2000 in Kansas City. I came back home a few months later, or 4 months later, after traveling to Tacoma with some friends. We're going to get into all that with my testimony videos. They ran out of money. I ended up helping them get home. The Lord gave me an option of going back to New England and forgiving my father sooner or later, or going back to Kansas City first to do ministry. I chose to go back to New England and get my thing with my dad over with. And so I was home for 5 years before I went back to Kansas City. I have to do ministry there, which is a whole other story, a big one. So while I was home, my friend, my close friend Ben, who I was witness to at the time, but he later came to Christ and became a missionary, and invited me to Asia with him much later. And he's still over there doing stuff at an orphanage with his family and everything. But at the time, he had just joined the Army, and he had given me his car. Now, when I first got home. Now, a little while later, he had leave, and he came back for a short time. And he had to get from New England, after he visited his family, he had to get from New England all the way down to Virginia, to, I think it was Fort Euclid on Virginia Beach. And so, excuse me. What happened next was that his car that he gave me was not in the best shape. I didn't, we had to drive really fast and get down there quick. So we ended up renting a car and driving all the way down from above Massachusetts area down all the way down to Virginia. And we had to do it very quickly. So we got this like little Suzuki car thing. Now at this time, I'm witnessing to him really for the first time. And I'm explaining to him the experiences I had with Christ in Kansas City, and the ways the Lord had started speaking to me and teaching me things. I started talking to him about signs. I started talking about other stuff. And God was having me kind of, it's like I knew what he was where his mind was going next. So I was like cutting him off at the pass. The Holy Spirit was like having me anticipate his doubts and his concerns and the questions he had, to the point where he was just amazed. And you do see Jesus doing this. It's like he can see the hearts of people. He can see where they're grumbling, they're questioning, and you can see their intentions. And so it was a similar situation in this one case with me. And I remember we went through this tunnel at one point, and we were talking about the signs that God used. And the timing of them. And I remember he was asking, well, how do you know for sure this or that? And I said, well, sometimes he just uses these little things that come quickly at the right moment of something I'm thinking about as a confirmation, or something I am saying or doing. And other times it's really, and I waited because we were coming out of the tunnel, and God told me there was going to be a sign right in that moment. And I said, I just waited. And as we came out, one of those gigantic tankers was in like Chesapeake Bay or whatever It might not have been Chesapeake Bay. It might have been something closer to. It was closer to New York. One of those big bays. I think it was. I think it might have been the Lincoln Tunnel we were coming out of. So it might have been. Yeah, it's further north. But it was just like this gigantic, one of those big tankers. Mediterranean. What is it? Sea Charter or whatever, or Military Sea Lift Command, whichever one it was. But it had my initials on, MSC, and this gigantic, it took up like a big part of the sky in front of us as we were coming out of the tunnel. And while I was in the process of saying, sometimes he gives me a big one. And Ben just saw that, and he just sat back in his chair and just relaxed for a minute. Now, this is a guy who had never known me to be this loony, to trust this type of timing and this type of revelation, these types of signs, these types of. He was my roommate before I was saved for a couple of years after college, and he never knew me to trust anything at all whatsoever, let alone suddenly believing in signs that show up before. Or I should say, I've announced before they show up. But that's what was going on in my life at the time. God was very clear with these signs. Now later, he kind of removed the signs. He told me that they were training wheels, that type of thing, and I had to push in and get to know his personal voice, the Holy Spirit. And the signs became less. The Holy Spirit voice became much louder, sometimes very loud. But most of the time it was that still small voice everybody talks about. That's what it was, and still is. And I'm very grateful for that. During this time of spiritual warfare I just went through a little while ago, God was not speaking to me at all, partially because it was a test. I know that now. And partially also because of the warfare itself. The enemy was keeping, the angels at bay, keeping messages from me, even though he did give me some messages. He really did. And they made it through. And I'm very grateful for all of that. But he also, encouraged me through it. So again, I'm saying this over and over again. That's a video for another time. I'm going to stay away from that one for a while. That's going to be like a 2-hour-long video. Because it's not over yet. I think I'm still in it. And, but anyway, thank you for joining me for this short video. I wasn't done. I'm not done yet. I'm not finished. So I'm headed home after dropping Ben off at Fort Euclid or whatever it is. And I'm going by the New York skyline on the interstate. And I see the Twin Towers, and I see the whole skyline. Now, this is September 8th of 2001. And I had like one of those little Kodak cameras in the car, the ones that you used to be able to you buy at the gas station and develop the film, that type of thing. I had one of those with me because we took some pictures on the way down. We actually stopped at the beach, Virginia Beach, for a little bit, and just jumped in the water really quick while we were down there. And I think I called into work sick on the beach. I don't know if that was a godly thing to do, but I didn't know what else to do. He needed a ride desperately. But because I worked the night shift, I worked the late shift. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to get back on time. Anyway, so I'm driving by the New York skyline, and the Holy Spirit hits me and says, "Stop. Look. You're not going to see this again." It said, "Stop. Look. You're not going to see this again." Now, I didn't stop. There was a lot of traffic. And there was there's very little space on the side of the highway at where I was to stop. But I slowed down a lot and just looked out and looked at the whole skyline, including the Twin Towers. Now, he didn't tell me anything else. That was it. He just told me to stop and look one more time. I wanted to get a picture. I wanted to pull over and get a picture, but everybody's honking at me and when I slowed down, and it got really scary for a minute there. So I just kept going. I didn't know. At the time, I was like, what the heck was that about? God, what was that about? Of course, a few days later, I woke up Like I said, I was working the night shift at the time at my job. And my mother called me around 10 o'clock in the morning and told me what had happened. I turned on the television. I ended up going to my parents' house and watching what was going on. One of the things I predicted as an atheist was that the Arab nations, would eventually attack the United States, because we were pumping out things like pornography and all kinds of just dumb stuff, while we were sucking in the most intelligent minds from other countries and keeping them here. And I figured it's only a matter of time before, disenfranchised people from those countries would want to harm the United States. It just made sense. And I also predicted that the world would be end up being, because of that and many other things, the United States would end up being the police of the world, and particularly against Arab nations. And of course that happened. As a history major, you kind of see these things coming ahead of time, like the pandemic in the 2020s and what I call the hypnotic war, which I knew was going to start in around 2018, which it did. Which is the internet battle that happened during the last 4 years, or 10 years really. Anyway, if you want to know more about these subjects and my perspective on them, I included them in my novel. So here we go: Melchizedek, Kings and Priests, and the sequel, The Angry Prophet. There's a lot more information in these, prophetic stuff that some of it ended up coming true and still is. So if you want to check these out, futuristic action-adventure novels, I worked really hard on them. They're on Amazon. You can also go to melchizedeknovel.com to check them out. The Lord wants me to do this. I know it sounds like it's a terrible plug. There's always a book. I get it, but this is what He wants me to do with these videos. So anyway, I'm going to do more of these videos. I'm going to do a bunch of them, because God has done a lot in my life, and I'm eternally grateful for all the things He's done and the people He's brought in, even the ones that don't talk to me anymore. And so I love you all. God bless you, and be a warrior, not a worrier. God bless.